series. Our guest today is mezzo-soprano Magdalena Vor. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Vor?
Yes, it's Magdalena Vor.
Magdalena Vor. Ha, okay. Magdalena is a winner, finalist, and recipient of many prestigious national and international competitions and awards, including the Marcello Giordani and Moniuszko International Vocal Competitions, winner of the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions, and Marcela Kochanska-Sembrich Vocal Competition. Magdalena is an alumna of the Washington National Opera's Domingo Kafritz Young Artist Program and of the San Francisco Opera's Merola Opera Program. And Magdalena, you have performed with various companies throughout the United States and Europe in your career as a singer, as a soloist. I guess no introduction can fully cover your accomplishments. There are so many. So perhaps you could tell us, our audience, the festival audience, about yourself, more about your path in music. How did it all begin? How did you end up in the United States? Tell us more about your musical journey.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you. Thank you for having me on this podcast. So, my musical journey started when I was 18, but I think perhaps even much earlier than that. I was always involved in something that had to do with music and with theater. I was always very interested in both. As a child, and of course, as a teenager, it all started in church. I was involved in chorus and in solo singing at church and cantoring, which I think is very important because it built my confidence, being in front of people, standing in front of people and singing. And then I met my mentor, with whom I have studied for many years and who continues to be my mentor. I think I'm very lucky because that's very important to have someone there for you. Later on in life, maybe you don't get to see that person as often, but they're there in case you want to go and yourself take lessons or maybe learn a new role as the voice changes and as you mature vocally and continue to grow. Because musicians, we never stop growing. It's something that continues all of our life. So I met her when I was 17 years old, and when I was 18, I started taking lessons in order to enter a university, in order to audition for a university and pass. And then a couple interesting things occurred that really helped my career. At the age of 21, very, very young, I entered the Metropolitan Council auditions, which are huge in the United States. Hundreds of applications come in every single year to audition. And the first step are the state auditions, which I passed. And despite the fact that I was actually getting sick and was very lucky
Oh, no.
that I managed to, with the flu, actually pass the first stage. And then the regionals came along. Same thing occurred. I sang with some wonderful colleagues who have gone on to have huge careers themselves. And it was just wonderful to share the stage with them. And I run into them throughout concerts and performances. And I passed on to semifinals and the finals at the Met. And the reason this was really important for me is because it opened doors to other auditions, such as the Merrill audition, which was the next big thing. Why is it important? Because it's an 11-week intensive training. I went to a university. So, universities versus conservatories, there are some things that conservatories have that, allow the students to have even more experience, kind of broader experience. And for me, young artist programs filled in those gaps. So I had a chance to observe amazing performers, from the sidelines, or up close and personal, close to the stage in rehearsals. I had a chance to perform under the direction of amazing conductors such as Maestro Martin Katz. And I was able to work with great coaches on diction and to hone my acting skills, and all of this is really important. So along the way, it started with Marilla and then a couple other young artist programs, and then I was very fortunate to end up at the National Opera in Maestro Domingo's young artist program, and I had an absolute blast. It was just tremendous 2 years, of yourself being on the stage, and we had many opportunities. Those of us who were there for those 2 years. the people before us really paved the way, and the main stage had a great relationship with the Young Artist Program. So we had a lot of great roles to perform, and to be around these major artists who are just very kind, and had always great stories to tell and answered all questions. Um, I had the opportunity, still as a young artist, to cover at the Metropolitan Opera, along with Olga Borodina, being in the main role and being in the rehearsal space, and watching her and the other artists. So this is really important for a young artist, because not only are you yourself performing, but the watching and the asking the questions, and for a career that gives you it gives you kind of ideas as to where you should go, what your next
Right.
step should be.
So you would say that mentorship is very important. Mentorship was very important for you in your case.
Absolutely. But
meeting the right mentor, meeting.
Absolutely. But I wouldn't have that if it weren't for the things that happen along the way that open the door to these other auditions and next auditions and next auditions. And all of that really started for me with the National Council auditions, the Metropolitan National Council auditions.
So it almost sounds like one thing you did led to many other opportunities. It was sort of like one thing naturally followed the other.
Yes. And I think what I'm also getting at is that, had my mentor at that time said, no, she's still too young. She knew, she felt that I was ready. And so even though I was 21 years old, I did the first audition. I took that first step. Had I not done that, it would have been a no, right? Completely no opportunity. But a lot of times you really have to trust the person guiding you. And the other side of it is that sometimes something seems very big, but when you're ready for it, when you have that repertoire, go and do it. It's always a 50-50. It's a yes or a no. And the other thing that's really important right away is to start building a repertoire that is correct for your voice type. Step by step, that you have someone there that you trust that says, whoa, maybe in a couple of years, that would be good. We can start slowly working on it. But at this moment, this and this and this is good for you. It's right for your vocal growth. And you're going to have that on your repertoire list so you can go and do these auditions. Young artist programs, you need repertoire for that, for them as well. And you have to start working on it early because it's all in the details. You have to polish your craft.
So, Magdalena, looking back, at your journey so far, what would you say were the most important events, musical events, that shaped your career, that shaped your destiny, where you are today, made it possible?
I think the ones that I mentioned, so the council auditions, Marilla. Now, Marilla was really important for me vocally because I was given the role of Rosina in The Barber of Seville. It was tremendous for me. First of all, I had never sung Rossini, and Rossini is a very specific type of music, and you have to have you have to sing fast runs. You have to know how to, breathe correctly and how to sing those runs on your breath. So for me, it was a wonderful vocal development. And on top of it all, Rossini is comedy. So you have to really work on your comic timing. What was really wonderful about this too is that the whole set and everything around it, it was prepared for actually touring, a whole fall of touring. Now, the sad part is that the touring didn't happen because Western musical theater unfortunately shut down that year. So those of us who met each other, everything was already geared towards us touring, and that was unfortunately the sad part because we got along beautifully and we would be wonderful to travel together the entire fall. But nevertheless, the experience itself was really fantastic. And since then, I had gone to sing Rossini's Cinderella. I've done the evil stepsister in Cinderella, as well as the role of Cinderella herself. So I've done other Rossini roles, and they're a lot of fun. So that was the second thing. And a lot of my colleagues that I met that year, we continued to stay in touch, and so it was a great summer. But the next step was, of course, the National Opera. And there I had a lot of opportunities from singing one of the sisters in Valkyrie to flying above the stage, 30 feet plus, to working with amazing directors and conductors. All of it shaped my career, and meeting the people and staying in touch with them and just being prepared, being all this is really important as a young artist because you're building your reputation, you're building your network, the people that
Right.
you meet, the pianists, the coaches, the
Yes. Well, I just want to emphasize on your message because what you're saying is so important because my own story absolutely attests to what you just mentioned. And that's what I want to stress to our students that will be applying to the festival this summer, the opportunity to perform at the Kennedy Center, the opportunity to study with wonderful teachers such as yourself. That's so important because it can be life-changing for them, and it can also lead to many other wonderful things that will happen in their lives. So it's probably in the performing arts and music, the relationship between the teacher, the mentor, and the student is more important than it would be, say, in chemistry or physics or math or other fields, where it's also important but not quite as much. Well, speaking of teaching and studying, one thing that caught my attention that you are both an accomplished teacher and mentor and a student at the same time. You're still a student. You're completing a doctoral degree.
I am. I'm just a semester away. My recording, my dissertation recording is wrapping up, and my document is being written. So probably even mid fall it will be all finished.
Fantastic. May I ask you what it will be about? Your doctoral document?
Oh yes, so it is. The dissertation is. It accompanies the recording, which is a recording of 2 song cycles by the wonderful composer Alexander Jourbin. And what's really amazing is the cycles are written beautifully. It's just amazing music. But the texts are amazing too, and the texts are on Marina Tsvetaeva. So very interesting set of song cycles.
Well, amazing. Well, please let me know when you are done. I would love to read, your research. That would be fantastic.
Thank you. I will. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So now I think we can, we got a little bit of a glimpse of your musical path, your musical career. Tell us a little bit about your teaching philosophy. How do you approach students? How do you approach, younger students, less experienced students? What's your teaching philosophy?
So this is my firm belief that, and this is something that I received. So everything that I teach is what I have learned along the way that has helped, that helped me grow. And that is details. It's all in the details, and it really has to do with listening to each student individually. There is no one size fits all. Yes, we all have to work on our technique. Yes, we all are learning our repertoire. But I believe what's really important for a teacher is to hear the student, see where they are in what stage they are in their learning, and to pay attention to the little technical details. So, for example, vowels, and making sure that vowels are open, making sure that the throat stays open. One of the things that occurs right away is that, and that's across the board for everyone, including myself when I started, is that we speak on consonants, we don't speak on vowels. So students, what they tend to do is they tend to automatically close to consonants as they sing, and they work so hard and try to understand how is it that we, singers who have worked for a long time, how is it that we're able to sing all these legato lines, right? How is it that we're able to sing these high notes when they themselves only have an octave, which, by the way, I did. When I started, I only had an octave, and so step by step, and a lot of times it's just, sometimes it may seem like kind of frustrating work, but you can't jump from one thing to the other. So you polish and polish and polish. You assign a song that challenges the student just ever so slightly, so that so that their range continues expanding. And once that occurs, along the way you give them another song, because along the way the voice is going to change, it's going to grow. So focus on little details where, if something is tight, if something is close, you stop, and right there and then you help the student. You don't just think about the piece as a whole, you think about phrasing by phrasing by phrasing. One of the things I also tell my students right away is speaking of pieces as a whole, don't look at it yourself when you practice. Look at it as phrase by phrase or page by page and polish that. And then when you're done with that, go on to the next part. Start by working on whatever language you work on. So let's say that that we work on Italian. Why is it that a lot of teachers first assign Italian? Because Italian is all about open vowel sound, short vowel sounds. So it's a lot easier than, for example, English or French or any other language, because my teaching philosophy, as many teachers out there as well, is that everything, all the other languages, they work with the Italian vowel sounds, the short vowel sounds, even French, with its nasality, all of that, because you keep an open throat in Italian vowels. Gosh, there's so much to mention in this. Next thing,
right.
Next thing would be languages. That would be the next thing I would have to cover.
Let me ask you, though, since this is a section a bit of a rapid fire questions, and gosh, I wish we could just go on for a few hours. I mean, I'm learning so much about you. I'm enjoying this conversation. Well, let me ask you, have you ever had an impossible student? Somebody who you would call impossible?
You know what? Not impossible, but maybe someone where it was a challenge, because we all have different personalities, right? And we all, we whatever craft we have, whether it's a voice or whether it's instrument, we are protective of it, right? So we go in especially when you first meet a teacher and you don't really know how to make that person out. Maybe you feel like the personality is a little quirky. I mean, we're artists. I think all of us have quirky personalities. It goes along with us being artists. So I think the key is to not necessarily convince that person, because I think that's not the point. The point is to show that student that, look, I really know what I'm talking about from experience, yes? But to me, vocal health is the most important thing. I am very protective of my students' voices. And because someone protected my voice, and I know what that means, I have run into colleagues along the way who are literally jealous of the fact that I have had only one mentor for 20-something years. Now, I also currently have a second one because of my doctorate degree, and I was also very lucky in finding that person, because that person's technique is the way that I have sung for years, and also their attention to detail is just like what I have had. So the health of the students and the steady vocal growth is of utmost importance to me. And
see, what I'm trying to get here a funny story, and about an impossible student, about a scandal, and there is no scandal.
There is no scandal. So I think what I had is just maybe in my life, as a teacher, maybe 2 or 3 where at first they came and they were a little resistant. They were a little worried, like, what she's saying is a little weird, because we have to singing. Right. Learning to sing has to do with a lot of imagination. We teachers have to come up with some interesting imagery in order for the student to relax their tongue, in order for them to keep their throat open, in order for them to keep a steady breath flow and a legato line. And it has to do with a lot of imagination. So you really have to go with the flow.
Okay. So what you say was your funniest teaching experience?
My funniest teaching experience. Let's see. I'm trying to think of something very quickly. I wish I knew. I would prepare ahead.
Your stage experience, something gaff, I know, mixing up words. And sometimes words can sound funny too, especially when you sing in different languages. There are so many possibilities for mishaps.
You know what? This is the only thing I can think of, and happened recent. And that is, I have a very inquisitive student, and she's young, and she's, she's young enough that certain words, art songs have a lot of old language. And so she asked me something that had to, she didn't understand. She actually mixed up the meanings, and she was very confused as to why something would happen that certain way when it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And I thought that was very sweet. And so I explained to her, no, I think you're mixing up the two meanings. This is the old meaning of the word, and this is the new meaning of the word. And I just found that really sweet. But the fact that she asked, because I always encourage them, and I said, look, my studio is a safe space. Ask questions, even if they seem really silly to you. Just ask, because I feel that it's better for you to know. And And we also talk about interpretation. I want all of them to understand for the same reason that art songs are old language. And so a lot of times they look at first confused, like, what does that mean? And I stop and I take the time to explain it.
Well, I can certainly think of a few words myself that sound really funny in a musical context, and in today's context, and then they meant yes,
right, exactly. And I thought it was really sweet.
Right. Well, you worked with so many conductors. Let me ask you, who is your favorite conductor?
Oh my gosh. There are quite a few. I really enjoyed working with Gary Wedo, and of course Maestro Domingo. Israel Gurski is amazing. Stephen White, who conducts also at the Metropolitan Opera, one of the in-house conductors. Honestly, every single one of them has brought something new as well for me. So I really enjoy. And for example, Maestro Wedo, he specializes in Baroque. So so I have learned a lot along the way from him about Baroque. Music. So all of them, like I said, all of them bring something new. I can't say that.
I noticed that you work with Maestro Ashkenazi, and as a piano player now, and I'm trained a classical pianist, I'm particular to pianists, right? So I'm
yes, of course. I really enjoyed working with Maestro Ashkenazi, and I have a wonderful story actually of us working together as well. A really, really fun one. I was just just came out of my young artist program at the National Opera, and I did Grieg's. Oh gosh, it just escaped me. Peer Gynt. I did Peer Gynt with him. And he is just such a dynamic conductor, and and just watching him there on that podium, he enjoys it so much, and he brings that energy to you as you're singing. And we were actually far away up in the choir loft, just the way that stage was built and set up. So it was just a wonderful experience as well. I know I keep saying and using the word wonderful, but for me, I take something out of every single experience because every single one of them teaches you something. There are things that happen on stage, for example, that people don't even realize in the audience that occurred, and to them it was something funny, and they think it's planned because the timing was just right, and they don't even realize how many things happen on stage that were maybe not meant to happen. And yet if you are in the moment, you will do something with it, and you will make it work.
Yeah, once I saw a musician play in the orchestra. He was playing cards, in the back row there. He was in the drum section, and he missed his entry. That happens too. But anyway,
I actually have observed that in rehearsals, not in performances, but I have observed that. And I always thought to myself, how in the world, as they're playing, they're having to count, right? And I'm like, how in the world can they do that and yet come in on time? But oh gosh, he missed. That's terrible.
Yeah. They just like to be on the edge the whole time. So I understand them. Well, I know. I remember Master Ashkenazi. I actually happened to play for him in master classes. He was always very warm, very kind, very encouraging. Just a wonderful mentor. But listen, some people say to me, the people who don't know classical music that well, don't know professional music that well, they say, well, but we sometimes see, orchestras play by themselves. So orchestras play with a conductor and a soloist at the same time. A conductor who plays piano, and they are fine. Do they really need a conductor?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yes. That's actually a question that I have heard before, and I have listened to other people discuss it as well. Yes, because when you have, so there's always someone who is there as the conductor. Let's say that you even have the first chair, the first violin, who is leading everyone. You have that person leading because there's so many people listen to one another, and yet tempo changes. Right? Entrances, there are tricky entrances where even though we're tremendous musicians, we still are very grateful to have them when there's a tricky passage and there are so many people involved in a performance. So that person, plus the conductor, is not just there to wave the stick. All of us are bringing something to the table, and the conductor is taking that, and he or she herself is giving of him of herself to take whatever it is that we offer and kind of mix it in and offer a performance that involves everyone.
So you're saying that the artistic vision of the conductor is extremely important, that conductor has to guide, has to lead, and has to bring his vision to the piece, his reading to the piece.
I think they do, but the most wonderful conductors I feel and I find that are the ones really open to ideas from you, and they let you actually do your thing. Now, they may say to you, this is a really tricky passage, and since we have so many people involved, could you please do this and that in order to help?
Mm,
But
mm.
the ones who are really amazing always say to you, show me what you have. Show me how you feel this should be done as a soloist, and they're really open to ideas. And they breathe with you. They are there for you and watch you and encourage you. I think those are the type of leaders that are the best, that allow you to shine through.
All right. So Magdalena, sounds like you're so immersed in music. Do you have any hobbies outside music?
I do. Yes, I do. So besides music, I have a literature degree. I love to read.
Oh wow.
I love to read, especially British literature. Um, that happens to be my degree in, but I love to read history, historical literature. I love to read mysteries. I love to read adventures, fantasies, and such literature. Now, besides that, I love to cook. I love to try new things. Yes, I grew up in a household where all three of us, my mom, my dad, and I, we loved to cook, and we had each other as guinea pigs to to test the food out on. But because of that encouragement, I got better and better and better. And now I just, if something interests me, I just get the recipe. Or sometimes I open the fridge and I go, what's in there? And I just come up with stuff. I also love hiking. I grew up in Poland, in a mountain region. I came to the United States when I was 11, but till then, my parents and I did a lot of hiking with friends in the on the hiking trails in the mountains.
So you were in the southern Poland, right, near Krakow and.
I actually grew up close to the Czech border. And when I say close, very close, 30 minutes walking distance from the Czech border.
Wow.
I grew up in a small city that is part of kind of a chain of cities that have spring waters that attract tourists, and people go there for health benefits. There's paraffin, there are spring waters, beneficial spring waters, and of course, beautiful forests. And it is just gorgeous. It's really beautiful.
Oh, well, I would love to visit that one time. I was in Krakow, and Wrocław, that probably was the closest to where you were born. But one day.
Yes, yes, where I grew up. I actually was born up in the north of Poland, but I moved down south when I was 3 years old.
I see. Wow. Well, so I guess to conclude our wonderful little conversation, why do you think it's important for students to sign up for music festivals like the Kirov International Music Festival?
Well,
what's the main benefit?
I think I'm a perfect example of it. You get so much benefit from being part of festivals, part of young artist programs, which is what to me festivals are, and that is you get to experience. First of all, you meet other people, you work with them, you listen to them, you take away something beneficial from each experience. And some people say, well, am I going to only get beneficial? I was always told as a student is that you need to focus on what works for you, and you'll know when it works for you because you'll see yourself grow as an artist. And that's a whole package. An artist means everything. Your vocal technique, it means understanding how to move on stage, how to interpret your songs. And when I say songs, I just don't mean just art songs. How to interpret your arias. You meet a teacher where they mention repertoire that you haven't heard before because there's so much to hear about. You can't hear about everything all at once. So by taking part in these wonderful festivals, you are going to always walk away more enlightened. You will take away a lot technically, and you will take a lot away when it comes to repertoire. You're going to hear other people sing. Observing is really important. I have a great story. When I was a young artist at the National Opera, when I first started, Samuel Ramey was singing the main role of Bluebeard in Bluebeard's Castle, in Bartok's Bluebeard's Castle, which happens to be actually my favorite opera of all operas, right? People will say something like La Traviata or Carmen, or Carmen happens to be my role. I've done it a lot, and I love that opera, and I love the character. It's very complex, but my favorite opera happens to be Bartok's Bluebeard's Castle, and I was there every single night for the rehearsals. Even though they just couldn't get rid of me. And then I went to see every single performance. I really am not kidding. So observing others, you learn a lot from it. And that's another part of being in a festival, because you'll get to hear others sing. You'll get to be part in master classes, whether yourself singing or whether observing, just as beneficial, both things. So you learn a lot, and it fills in the gaps. Maybe those are the things that you are not going to get at your university, because you get other things at university. So you go to these festivals in order to fill in the gaps and to grow as an artist.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. And students will be very lucky to study with you. And I look forward to hearing you sing and coach and teach and mentor wonderful young talent at the festival this summer. And this concludes our podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.